This is the video recorded deposition of Patricia Vargo in the matter of Daniel Gilreath versus FCA US LLC et al., case number CV 2018-071583. This deposition is being held at 6694 US Highway 129 North in Live Oak, Florida. Today's date is January 8th, 2020, and the time is 5:48 p.m. Would counsel please introduce themselves?
Matt Kahn for the plaintiff, Daniel Gilreath.
Courtney Scheidel for FCA US.
David Davidson on behalf of Tracy Wayne Moore and Tri-State Concrete Inc.
Okay, now will the reporter please swear in the witness?
Ma'am, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. So this will be the deposition of Patricia Vargo, formerly Patricia Lisinski, taken pursuant to notice in the case of Daniel Gilreath versus FCA US LLC. It's taken pursuant to the Ohio Rules of Civil Procedure for the preservation of evidence at trial. Will you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your name?
Patricia Vargo,
And where do you live, Miss Vargo?
7586 118th Terrace, Live Oak, Florida.
And we're here in Live Oak, Florida for this deposition today,
Yes.
right? Did you at one time own or drive a 2006 Jeep Liberty?
Yes, sir.
And did your Jeep Liberty have a trailer hitch?
Yes, sir, it did.
Were you involved in a rear-end collision in which that Jeep was hit in the rear?
Yes, sir.
Following that collision, did your Jeep catch fire?
Objection to form.
And since this is a trial deposition, I'll ask if you could let me know what the objection is, the basis of the objection is, so I can correct it.
Objection to form, vague.
Okay. So FCA has made an objection, so just so we have a clean record, I'm going to ask the question again. Following the collision, did your Jeep catch fire?
Yes.
And what was the date of that wreck?
October 23rd, 2014.
Before October 23rd, 2014, had you been rear-ended while driving your Jeep?
No, sir.
You want to explain that?
Sure, yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, and she may have objections from time to time. So if you want to wait briefly until she objects, and then once she's done, you can answer.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and ask the question again for the record. Before October 23rd, 2014, had you ever been rear-ended while driving your Jeep?
Objection to the form, vague. Foundation.
You can answer.
No.
Ms. Vargo, will you tell me generally how your wreck happened?
I was driving on Highway 90, and I was coming into town. I had a hair appointment, and there was a combine backed up, had the traffic backed up on the road. I was stopped at the back of the line when I looked in my rearview mirror, and I seen a vehicle coming, and it was not slowing down. So I braced for it. I didn't have time to warn my daughter, who was a passenger in the vehicle. The vehicle hit me, and as soon as it hit me, there was a fire. My vehicle went off the road, and I was going towards the tree line on the side of the road, and I yanked the steering wheel back so I would go to the left. And then before I had the vehicle completely stopped, my daughter had already gotten out of the vehicle. And then I was fumbling. I was still in the vehicle. I yanked the emergency brake to stop the vehicle. And then I was fumbling with my seatbelt to try to get out of the vehicle.
And did you ultimately get out of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
How hard was the impact?
Objection, vague.
It was very hard. The trooper said he was going, all they could say was he was going at least 60 miles per hour. That was the posted speed limit.
And I want to talk a little bit about the fire. When did you first realize that your Jeep was on fire?
Almost immediately.
And where was it that you first noticed the fire?
Or coming from the back, because I could still see in the rearview mirror. I was a little disoriented, but
And did the fire spread to the rest of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
How fast did it spread?
Objection, cause for speculation.
I'm not exactly sure how fast. I know that when it hit, when we were sitting there on the side of the road still, all my hair, my bangs and my hair was singed already before I could even get out the vehicle.
So was this a big fire or a small fire?
Objection to form vague.
In my opinion, it was a big fire.
And how much of your Jeep burned?
Almost all of it. I mean, from what I've seen, and like I say, I seen it, you know, while we were sitting there on the road with the paramedics and all that there. And yes, it was completely.
What did you do after you realized the Jeep was on fire?
That's when I knew, that's when I yanked the steering wheel when I was going off the road to keep from going in the tree lines. Because I knew that if I got caught in the tree lines and the brush, it was over.
And how did you get out of the car?
I physically got out myself. I'm trying to remember. I know I yanked the brake, and then I got stopped, and like I say, I was fumbling for the seatbelt because I was trying to get out of the car, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get out of the car. And I unhooked the seatbelt, and the door did open.
Was any part of your body burned during your escape from the burning Jeep?
No, sir.
How long did the Jeep burn after you and your daughter escaped?
I'm really not sure how long it was burning. It was, luckily, the Suwannee County Fire and Rescue was immediately behind the person that hit me. And they had just left the scene of another accident and were heading back into Live Oak. So he was behind me, and even when he got there, he's the one that called 911. And when he got there, he couldn't put the fire out.
Okay. When you bought the Jeep, did the dealer or anyone else point out where the gas tank was located?
No, sir.
Did FCA ever tell you anything about what could happen to the rear gas tank when the Jeep was hit in the rear?
I did. I received a recall saying that it could be a possible fuel leak and that there was a recall on it to have a trailer hitch installed. That was the vehicle, the recall. And I'd already had a trailer hitch on mine. I had called Sunbelt, the local Chrysler dealer, to have them set up an appointment, and I never had that appointment.
Okay. Did FCA ever tell you that the gas tank was, quote, vulnerable to rear impact, end quote?
Objection to form foundation vague.
No. Other than the recall. That's,
So I have here a document that's been pre-marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 358. If you want to take a look at that, here's a copy for you. Oops, sorry. Thank you. Have you seen this recall notice before?
yes, sir.
And did FCA send this recall notice to you?
Yes, sir.
And was it in the envelope that's pictured on the first page of the exhibit?
Yes, sir. It was just a two-sided flyer.
And did you receive this particular notice before or after the wreck?
This one, I believe, come after the wreck.
And was this notice helpful to you?
Objection to form vague.
No, sir. My Jeep was already totaled.
It would have been more helpful before your Jeep burned, right?
Yes, sir.
Objection leading.
Did you receive any warning or notice before the wreck?
Yes, sir.
Objection vague.
So I'll ask one more time. FCA has an objection. Did you receive any warning or notice before the wreck?
Yes, sir.
Would it surprise you to learn that FCA never provided us with a copy of Plaintiff's Exhibit 358?
Objection to form argumentative leading lacks foundation.
Can I hear the question again?
Sure. Would it surprise you to learn that FCA never provided us with a copy of the recall notice marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 358?
No.
Same objection.
And why wouldn't that surprise you?
Objection, leading, cause for speculation, lacks foundation, vague and ambiguous.
Well, that it doesn't surprise me because the night of my accident, the evening of my accident, I contacted them and they did set me up with a case. And then they had told me that somebody would be in contact with me for them to come look at the vehicle, and that they did notify me that they would be coming to look at the vehicle. And he told me then that he would set up an appointment with me where I could go to with him to inspect the vehicle. After that, no, he never called me. I kept calling and calling, and then I received a letter in the mail saying there was nothing wrong with my vehicle. That had already been inspected.
Okay. After you received the first notice, did you understand that your Jeep could explode when rear-ended?
Objection, leading, cause for speculation, foundation.
No, sir, I did not.
After you received the first notice, did you understand that your Jeep could catch fire when rear-ended?
Same objection.
No, sir.
Ms. Vargo, I have here what's been pre-marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 359. I want to take a look at that. Have you seen a copy of this newspaper article from the Swanee Democrat?
Yes, sir.
And does this article contain a picture of your Jeep after the fire?
Yes, sir.
Can you hold the picture up so the jury can see it? Does any part of the Jeep appear to be hidden to you? You can look at it.
I was,
Objection to form, leading.
does any part of the vehicle appear to be? Yes, sir. The rear.
Do you see any crush damage to the Jeep in the parts that you can see?
Objection
No.
to form, cause for speculation, and conclude expert opinion.
No, sir.
So I'm going to ask that just one more time so we can get a clean record. FCA has an objection to the question. Do you see any crush damage to the Jeep in the parts that you can see?
No, sir.
Same objections.
Ms. Vargo, I brought a few photographs of your Jeep that FCA gave to us that have been pre-marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 360. Wait, I'm sorry. That was for you. 360 through 362. If you want to just take a second to look through those. Right here. Ms. Vargo, were you present when those photos were taken?
No, sir.
Did you ask to be?
Yes, I did.
Did FCA ever share those photos with you?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen these photographs before today?
No, sir.
Do these pictures appear to be your burned up Jeep?
Yes, sir.
Will you please look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 360 and describe what you see?
Which one is 360?
That's the front end.
It's my Jeep Liberty that was burnt. It was originally green, and the only green I seen left on that is at the on the hood, and the rest of it. Now I don't know why the front is torn apart.
Will you hold the picture up so the jury can see it? Ms. Varga, does there appear to be any crush damage to the Jeep forward of the rear axle, but before the front axle?
Objection to form, calls for conclusion, vague, lacks foundation. Or calls for expert testimony, speculation.
So any crush damage? No, sir.
And do you know what I mean when I say crush damage?
I'm assuming you're talking about any dents, big dents in
And
the
do you-
vehicle.
Sorry. And do you see any of that present in the middle of the vehicle?
No, sir.
Will you please look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 361 and describe what you see?
It's the rear end of my Jeep, and the insides and everything's gone.
And
Or not.
we also hold that one up so the jury can see. Now, does there appear to be any crush damage behind the rear axle?
Could you hold that up again?
Objection, calls for speculation, foundation.
I'll restate the question for you. FCA has an objection to it. Does there appear to be any crush damage behind the rear axle?
Same objections.
Yes, sir.
Does there appear to be any crush damage forward of the rear axle?
Same objections.
No, sir.
When we look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 362 and describe what you see and hold it up to the jury when you're done.
I have no idea.
Does it appear to be the underside of your Jeep?
Objection, leading, calls for speculation, asked and answered.
All I can see in the picture, I can't tell you what parts of the vehicle it is. I can see the dirt here, and that all looks like it's all in shambles.
Earlier you testified that your Jeep had a trailer hitch, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where the Jeep's trailer hitch is in that picture?
Objection, calls for speculation, asked and answered.
No, sir, I can't tell you where it's at. I can tell you that when the wreck occurred afterwards, when the paramedics were there, the trailer hitch was laying on the side of the road, or in the road.
A trailer hitch can't protect the gas tank if it falls off, can it?
Objection to form, calls for speculation and expert opinion, foundation, leading.
No, sir.
Do you think that this trailer hitch protected your gas tank?
Same objections, calls for speculation, lack of foundation, leading.
No, sir.
Do you know if FCA ever found out about your wreck?
Yes, sir. I contacted them.
And what did you tell FCA about your wreck?
I told them exactly what happened, that I had been in a vehicle wreck and that the Jeep had caught fire.
Did FCA ever accept responsibility for the fire that occurred after your wreck?
Objection to form, calls for legal foundation, speculation, leading.
No, sir.
I'm going to show you a document marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 363. It's titled a Customer Assistance Inquiry Record. Did FCA ever share a copy of this document with you?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen it before today?
No, sir.
Is right now the first time you're looking at this document, the first time you've ever seen it?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you'll look at the highlights at the top of the document, does that appear to describe your Jeep?
Yes, sir.
And if you'll read the highlighted portion, there's a number 2. It says what happened. If you can read, will you read what this document says under that heading?
Customer states that they were rear-ended and the vehicle immediately caught fire.
Is that what you told FCA when you spoke to them?
Yes, sir.
And will you read the final highlighted portion on that page?
Customer states that they got a letter stating that the vehicle has been inspected and it was found that there was no defect.
And did FCA ever tell you that they were inspecting your Jeep?
No, sir.
And did FCA tell you that they found no defect?
They did. They sent me a letter.
When did you first speak to me?
It was Tuesday or Wednesday. 31st. Somewhere around the 30th.
And did I ask you
Of
questions?
December.
Sorry.
I was on vacation. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. And did I ask you questions about your wreck?
Yes, sir, you did.
Did you feel like I was trying to get you to change your story?
Objection leading.
No, sir.
Did I suggest that you exaggerate?
No, sir. You told me to just tell the truth.
Was I polite to you?
Yes, sir.
And we texted a few times to plan this deposition, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
And we had a phone call yesterday.
Yes, sir.
What did we talk about yesterday?
Just about the general questions and what you asked me my story again, what had happened in the vehicle. And once again, you told me just to tell the truth and everything would be okay. Just
Did anyone from FCA's team of lawyers try to call you about this deposition?
no, sir.
If one of FCA's lawyers called, would you have spoken to him?
Yes, sir.
And would you have told them the same thing you told me?
Yes, sir.
Did any of FCA's lawyers ask you to bring our text messages today?
No, sir.
If someone asked you to bring those text messages, would you have brought them?
Yes, sir.
Did your experience have a lasting effect in your life?
Objection to form. Calls for speculation leading.
Absolutely.
And what was that effect?
Right after the accident, anytime I drive now, I am really anxious. Since the accident, I have gone on high blood pressure. I have extreme anxiety. I cannot drive on the interstate. Even now, if I'm driving just down the regular highway, I drive mainly local. If I have to go out of town, my husband usually drives me, or I'll take all the back roads. The back roads instead of the interstate, I can pull over if somebody gets them too close to me and I start getting anxious, I pull over.
Knowing what you know now, do you feel lucky that you were not killed in the October 23rd wreck?
Objection leading.
Yes, sir, I do.
Are you being paid to be here today?
Absolutely not.
And why are you here today?
Because I don't want to see anybody else get hurt or killed. And everyone I look at, when I see a Jeep Liberty, I look to see where their gas tank is located, and if they're available, I do warn them.
No further questions.
We go off the record for a minute.
Is that okay? All right, time off the record, 6:10 p.m. We're back on the record. The time is 6:20 p.m.
Good afternoon, Ms. Vargo. My name is Courtney Scheidel, and I represent FCA, and I've got a few follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
Can you, I think you testified that council first contacted you around December 30th. I guess it was sometime between Christmas and New Year's?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did you all discuss on that first phone call?
He just basically asked me about my story. He told me who he was, and he asked me to tell my story, and he did ask me a few questions to see if my case was even something that met the criteria.
What did he tell you about the case pending in Ohio?
The only thing he said about the case pending in Ohio, and he didn't even say Ohio, he just told me that there was another case and that unfortunately she didn't make it out alive.
What did he tell you about, if anything, about a trailer hitch being on your vehicle?
He told me nothing about the trailer hitch being on the vehicle. I told him that there was a recall on it, and that I did have the trailer hitch on my vehicle when it was rear-ended.
Okay. Did you exchange any emails with plaintiff's counsel?
Emails? No, ma'am.
Okay. Did plaintiff's counsel speak to your husband or your daughter? I think her name was Caitlin, that was in the vehicle at the time.
He spoke to my husband because I guess that was the contact number they had, because my phone had burned up in the vehicle. So I'm assuming that's how he got his number. And he talked to my husband and explained to him who he was. My husband brought me his cell phone, and then I talked to him.
Okay. Did plaintiff's counsel speak with your daughter?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Did he ask to speak with her about the accident?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You mentioned, or it came up in your deposition, that you all had exchanged some text messages. What was the contents of those text messages?
The text message was between, he sent me, actually I asked him to send me when the deposition was going to be. So he sent me that on text message instead of email, because I told him I don't regularly check my emails. He sent me that, and I think he sent me one text saying that this is when the deposition will be, such and such time. And like I say, the other text message was the actual court paperwork about the deposition, and he said that would be mailed to me too.
Okay. Did you all practice the questions that he was going to ask you today?
No, ma'am.
Had he asked you any of these questions or told you the types of questions that he intended to ask during the deposition?
Yes, ma'am. There was some, and then no, not all of them.
Okay. And then did you give the answers that you intended to give in the deposition back to him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever meet with counsel in person before your deposition today?
No, ma'am.
Besides telling you that the individual involved in the case that we're here about today did not survive the accident, what else did he tell you about that crash?
That was all he said. There was somebody else that they were going to jury, and that they just didn't make it out. Up until I received the deposition, I didn't even know it was in Ohio.
Sure.
Or who the person was. Just, it was general.
What kind of vehicle do you drive now?
2015 Kia Sorento.
Is that the vehicle that you purchased after this crash?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to find out a little bit more about you. What is your educational background?
I have some college.
What was the focus of your study in school?
I was going actually for my AA for the pharmacy. As of now, I have college leaning more towards criminal justice.
Okay. And are you employed outside of the home?
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you do?
I'm a correctional officer.
And who do you work for?
Suwannee Correctional, state of Florida.
Do you have any training, background, or experience in vehicle crash reconstruction?
No, ma'am.
Do you have any training, background, or experience in vehicle design?
No, ma'am.
Do you have any training, background, or experience in fire investigation?
Yes, ma'am, I do, actually.
Does it? Can you tell me about that?
I've been to the Florida State Fire College, but that training was basically just for fire extinguisher permit. I am currently the health and safety sergeant at Suwannee Correctional, which deals with the fire safety, all of that.
Have you ever?
So-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Have you ever conducted a fire cause and origin investigation?
No.
Do you have any training, background, or experience in vehicle engineering?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever worked for an automotive company or supplier?
No, ma'am.
Were you the person who purchased the Jeep Liberty that was involved in this accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you purchase it new or used?
Used.
Do you recall how old it was?
Let me think back. It was probably, I would say, approximately maybe 2 years old, 2 to 3 years old.
And where
at
did
the
you?
most.
I'm sorry. And where did you purchase it?
It was purchased at a tent sale right up here across the street, and it was from Tallahassee Dodge, I think it was the dealership.
Do you recall how many miles it had on it when you bought it?
I want to say around 12 or 13,000.
Okay. You don't happen to know the prior owner?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know whether the vehicle had been involved in any type of accident before you purchased it?
No, ma'am.
Were you involved in any other accident involving the vehicle during the time that you owned it?
No, ma'am.
Do you know if the vehicle had been modified in any way prior to the time you bought it?
No, ma'am.
Do you know what size tires the vehicle had on it at the time of the crash?
Not right offhand. No, ma'am. I did not.
Did you change the tires when you owned it?
No, ma'am.
Do you know if the tires were the original equipment or if they had been changed at some point?
I have no idea.
Did you modify the Jeep in any way while you owned it?
We installed the trailer hitch on it.
Okay.
Other than that,
When did you install a trailer hitch on it?
I'm trying to think when. We got married in 99. Married in 2000. It was probably around 2009. 2000, probably towards the end of 2008, 2009.
Okay. And what caused you to install a trailer hitch?
We were going to use it for towing, to
Okay.
tow a boat.
What kind of boat you have?
It was a little fishing boat. It was, I don't remember the name of it.
Like what I'd call a John boat or something bigger than that?
It was a
or-
little bigger than a John boat, but it wasn't. It was probably. I don't know. I really don't. I'd have to look at the record of what we had.
It's okay. It's okay. Do you recall where you purchased the trailer hitch?
Yes, I would. Not positive. It was either AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts. Most likely AutoZone.
Here in
Live Oak.
Live Oak. Do you recall what brand the trailer hitch was?
It was a Reese.
You don't happen to have any receipts or photographs or any more information about the trailer hitch or know what model it was?
No, ma'am. I know when we bought it, it was, they list, I think, 2 or 3 models usually that it will fit on. So it was something that it was recommended for it.
Okay. Do you know who put the trailer hitch on? Who installed it?
My husband.
Do you recall whether it was what I've heard called a multi-fit hitch that it would fit a number of different vehicles depending on which tools or which parts you used, or was it designed specifically for the Jeep Liberty?
Most likely it was designed for several vehicles. I can't positively say that, but
Okay. Do you have any photographs of the trailer hitch?
no, ma'am. My phone was burned up in the vehicle, and I did not have to take pictures.
Why did you choose to purchase a Jeep Liberty?
It was the most economical thing for me at the time.
Did you tow anything other than the boat you just talked about with your Jeep Liberty?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever have any problems with the trailer hitch?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever have any mechanical problems with the Liberty?
The only thing we did to the Liberty, the regulators in the windows, we've replaced every single one of them, I believe.
Okay. But other than that, no other mechanical problems?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever use the Liberty for off-road driving?
No.
You said your husband installed the trailer hitch on the Liberty. Did your husband have any experience as an auto mechanic?
No, ma'am.
He just did that as a layperson, reading the instructions,
Yes,
installing
ma'am.
it. I want to talk a little bit about the crash.
Okay.
Am I right that the highway you were on is a two-lane highway, one lane
Yes,
going
ma'am.
each way? And I think you said the speed limit was about 60 miles an hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were driving the Liberty,
Yes, ma'am.
and you had your seatbelt on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And your daughter was in the front passenger seat?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was buckled in as well?
Yes.
How old was your daughter?
She was either 14 or 15. I'm
It's okay.
horrible with dates. So yeah, it was 14. So she would have been 14.
Okay. Was anyone else in the vehicle?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Were you carrying any cargo in the back seat?
No.
Were you carrying any cargo in the rear storage area?
No, ma'am. Other than general stuff, umbrella, typical stuff.
Okay.
It was nothing.
Nothing
other than
large
that.
or heavy?
Right. No, ma'am.
You said that traffic had slowed down because there was a combine tractor in front. Is
Yes,
that right?
ma'am.
Okay. And you testified that you saw the vehicle coming behind you at a high rate of speed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At what point did you have an opportunity to realize this car is going to hit me?
I seen it, but there was nothing I could do. It was, and I didn't even have time to warn my daughter.
Okay.
I didn't even tell her to hold on or whatever. And that's when he struck me. And then after looking at the picture, and I said earlier, I didn't understand why the front was like this. But the front was like this because I hit the truck in front of me and then veered off into the grassy area
Okay.
toward the tree line.
Okay. Do you recall what type of vehicle it was that struck you from the rear?
Yes, ma'am. I have the crash report. So
Okay.
yeah, it was a Saturn, and the newspaper article, I think, said it was a Saturn. Or Dodge Dart. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm about to say, let's
I was
look
gonna
back
say,
at
it's
it.
a
That's
Dodge
okay.
Dart. Yes, and like I say, I have the.
Well, actually, you mentioned the crash report. Have you seen the crash report?
Yes, ma'am. I have a copy of the crash report.
And when did you get that copy?
Right after the accident. I had to go to FHP and get a copy.
Did you review it in preparation for your deposition to refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am. I looked at it. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. I have.
Okay. Well, I want to mark the crash report then as the next exhibit.
What number is that?
I
Would it be
So those are
363?
those are plaintiff's trial exhibits. The defendant, I believe, is using letters. Dave, is that right?
Yeah, I thought so.
Should we start at A?
That's fine.
Yeah.
And what we had talked about earlier was,
Let's go off the record for a second.
Okay, time off the record,
Exactly.
6:36
Leave her
p.m.
on.
We're back on the record, the time is 6:37 p.m.
And Ms. Scheidel, I want to make an objection to the use of this document. This was not produced in discovery. It's clearly responsive to several of plaintiff's discovery requests.
Ms. Vargo, you said, did you bring a copy of this crash report with you to the deposition?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a copy of it.
Okay. Did you bring any other documents with you to this deposition?
I brought the recall. I had a recall. And I brought my old driver's license from where it's showing where my hair was completely singed.
Okay.
And other than that, I have medical records.
Okay. When you say the recall you got, is that the document that we've already marked
Yes,
here?
ma'am.
It's the same document. Okay. Did you let plaintiff's counsel know that you had that crash report with you today?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. But you were able just to get that from the highway patrol?
I've had it since the accident. So yes, I had it at home filed.
Okay. Now let's go back through the crash because I think you've clarified a little bit about what happened. I think you testified that you saw what we now know as the Dodge Dart in your rearview mirror. You had an opportunity to brace for the impact, and then it crashed into the rear of your vehicle. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you testified, as the highway patrol found, that the gentleman in the Dart apparently did not brake and hit you at about 60 miles an hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you know the driver of the Dodge Dart?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What speed were you traveling when the Dodge Dart hit you?
If anything at all, probably not even 5 miles per hour. It was pretty much come to a standstill.
The traffic had
Yes,
because
ma'am.
of the combine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you recall about, let me ask you this. When the Dodge struck the back of your Liberty, do you know whether it was directly behind you or if he had veered to the left or the right?
That I don't know.
Okay. So you don't know whether the Dodge had tried to veer to avoid the crash?
Objection asked and answered.
No, I don't.
After when the Dodge Dart hit you, did you feel your vehicle lift up off the ground at all?
That I am not sure of. I know because as soon as the impact, the airbag exploded, and like I say, I went off. I remember hitting the vehicle and then veering off into the grass, and then pulling the steering wheel back to keep from going to the tree line.
Okay, so your airbag did deploy?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the airbag on the passenger side where your daughter was seated, did it deploy as
Yes,
well?
ma'am.
Okay, and did that happen as a result of you striking the truck in front of you?
I'm not sure why it went off. I mean, I'm not an expert.
No, I understand. So after you were struck in the rear by the Dodge Dart, do you know if you had your foot on the brake when it hit you?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you have been in drive or park?
In drive.
Okay. Do you
In
know?
first gear.
So is your Jeep a manual transmission?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you would have been in first gear because you were almost at a stop.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you had your foot on the clutch?
Trying to think. It's been so long since I drove a manual now. I don't think, if anything, maybe I did have my foot on the brake, but I wouldn't think the clutch if I was already in first gear.
Okay. Do you know? Okay. Do you know how far ahead of you the truck was that you were then that the Dodge pushed you into?
No, ma'am. I don't know how far. Like I say, the traffic was backed up, and it was just a line of traffic.
Okay. So it was like he was way far out in front of you, maybe a few feet, or
Objection. Asked
do you
and
know?
answered.
No, I really don't know.
Do you know what speed, if any, the Ford pickup in front of you was moving?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you speak with the driver of that pickup afterwards and find out how fast he was going or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
How much time passed between the time that the Dodge struck you in the back and you hit the pickup in front of you?
Seconds, maybe, minute. I mean, it was automatically. I mean, it was just, the impact was so hard that it pushed me directly into him.
So it was a matter of a second. I mean, it was pretty instant.
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard the term underride?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Has anyone ever said to you that the Dodge went up under your Jeep vehicle when it hit you?
No, ma'am. I mean,
You don't know.
no, I really don't know.
Did you have an opportunity after the Dodge hit you to try to avoid the pickup truck in front of you?
No, ma'am. I mean, I was disoriented by the time he hit me. Everything was just going crazy. And like I say, then I hit the vehicle in front of me, and I do remember I did pull the vehicle back because I seen the tree lines and the brush, and I wasn't going in there.
So my question is, and it notes it in the article that you've been talking about, you actually, after the Dodge hit you, you steered off to the side of the road. Isn't that right?
The Ford pickup was in front of me. So when I clipped his bumper or hit him, when the Dodge Dart impacted me, pushed me into him, his vehicle went up into the grass,
Okay.
and he was on the side of the road too. And I guess mine just kind of went that way, but mine was more going straight toward the tree line. I yanked the steering wheel to pull it back to the left so I would not go in the tree line.
Okay. Do you recall whether you intentionally steered over to the side to get off the road, or if you moved off the road because of the Dodge hitting you?
I'm going to object. Asked and answered several times.
Yes, the Dodge hit me and I went where I went.
Okay.
There was no, until I pulled it back to keep from going into the tree line.
Okay. But then, like you just said, when you got to the side, you were aware there are trees. I need to steer back. And so
Yes,
you
ma'am.
did to the left. Okay. And were you and your daughter, were there communications between you during this time period? I know it happened very quickly.
No, ma'am, I did not have time to warn her.
Okay.
So she did not know what was coming.
Okay.
The only reason I knew it because I had just looked in my rearview mirror.
Okay. And how did she get out of the vehicle? Your daughter?
How'd she get out? She jumped out the vehicle.
She unbuckled her seatbelt.
Yes, ma'am.
She opened the door.
Yeah, and kind of rolled out the vehicle.
Okay. Do you know whether that Jeep on the passenger side, whether her door was locked, so it's that she had to unlock it?
No, ma'am, I don't know if it was locked.
Okay. But she got out of the vehicle as you were going to the side.
Yes, as I was pulling the emergency brake, the vehicle was still moving when she rolled out of the vehicle.
Okay. At what point, if you can remember, did you pull the emergency brake during the sequence?
When I pulled it back to the left, and then the vehicle still wasn't stopping, and I did, and that's the only thing I can do. The brakes weren't. I mean, if I was pushing, I'm guessing I'm trying to stop the vehicle, and the vehicle was not stopping, and I yanked the emergency brake.
Okay. Do you know if at any time you pressed the accelerator after you were struck by the Dodge Dart?
No, ma'am, I wouldn't. No, I don't think so.
Okay. So the movement off the road and back to the left, the momentum was from the Dodge pushing
Yes.
you. Was the Dodge still connected or touching your vehicle as you went off the road?
That I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
Do we need to go off the video?
No. When you applied the emergency brake, the Jeep came to a stop on the side of the road, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And is it at that point that you unbuckled your seatbelt, opened the door, and got out?
Yes, ma'am, that's when I was fumbling. I tried to get out of the vehicle and couldn't figure out why I couldn't get out of the vehicle. And then I started fumbling with the seatbelt when I realized I still had my seatbelt on. And then
There was a
got
lot
out of the
going on.
vehicle. Yes.
Now, the article here says that there were only minor injuries. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were either you or your daughter transported by ambulance?
We both refused that night. The next day I did go to the ER. Both me and my daughter went to the ER.
Okay. And what type of injuries did you have?
I had injuries to my knee. They actually said that I had bronchitis, or my lungs were irritated, and they're assuming that was from the airbags. Trying to think, they did the CAT scans and everything on her. She had abdominal pain, just the normal bruises and banged up, but nothing serious.
Okay. Your daughter was never rendered unconscious.
No.
She was able to unbuckle and get out of the vehicle.
Yes.
And the same for you. You were able to avoid the trees, come to a stop, unbuckle, and get out of the vehicle.
Yes.
Do you know if you put the Jeep in park or you pulled the emergency brake?
Objection vague.
I'm assuming, with a stick shift, yeah, there is no park. I mean, there is a park, but no, I just pulled the emergency brake.
I'd forgotten it was a manual, you're right. I want to show you some other photographs of your vehicle. I guess we'll mark this one as Exhibit 2. to Ms. Fargo's deposition. Ms. Fargo, is this a photograph of your Jeep, similar to the ones that plaintiff's counsel showed you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can you hold it up for the camera, please? Can you tell me, I don't see a trailer hitch, obviously on the Jeep, so could you tell me where the trailer hitch was located?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Underneath the bumper.
Mm-hmm.
It was attached underneath on the frame.
Okay. Did the trailer hitch have the ball part that sticks up? Was that there, or was it not? Or was it just the receiver?
I want to say it was just the receiver. I'm not positive, but I want to say it was just the receiver.
Okay. So the piece with the ball attached, where you would have actually attached a trailer or something to tow it, it's your memory that that was there or was not there?
It was not there. Matter of fact, it was probably, and I'm not saying that it was, but we always kept it. I did not leave it out because I did not have a lock on it. So we always removed it and put it in the back of the vehicle. So we would have it, but nobody would steal it.
Okay. And I believe you testified earlier that the trailer hitch was on the side of the road after the crash?
It was in the middle of the road, yes ma'am.
Okay. And so when you say that, you mean just what part of the trailer hitch? How would it?
The main hitch I seen laying in the road.
Okay. So it had completely come off of your vehicle?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you recall what it looked like? Were there bolts sticking out, or do you know?
It was bent. I mean, it was, and because I don't know if they even took it to the tow yard. I don't know what happened to it. But yes, it was bent. I mean, you could tell it was a trailer hitch, but it was non-usable.
And can you describe a little bit better for me where it ended up, where you saw it?
It would be the westbound lane. It was laying,
I'm sorry, that would be the lane you were in.
yes.
That you were traveling
That
in.
was, yes.
Okay.
So it was laying on the edge of the road.
On the edge towards
Yes,
the
where
grass on the.
I don't know if there's any pictures of where the little side road, like the little side strip for pedestrians or bikes or whatever. Yes, it was laying between that and the line. So partially in the westbound lane and partially on the little side lane, whatever you call that, the median,
Right, where you veered off to the side.
yes.
Okay. And was the trailer hitch up close to where you left the highway, or was it back where the Dodge had hit you?
That, I have no idea. I don't remember.
Okay.
Because I do know that where my vehicle ended, the truck that was in front of me was way further up, and the Dart was further behind too. Because the white truck actually pulled up further to get away from the flames.
Okay. Do you recall how far you traveled from the point where the Dodge hit you to where you came to a stop?
No, ma'am. I have no idea.
I want to show you another exhibit. Let's just mark that as 3, please. This is just a closer up view of the photograph that I just showed you a second ago of the back of your vehicle after the crash. Can you tell me if you see the trailer hitch stored there?
No, ma'am.
Was there a particular place that you usually put it?
It was just laid in the back, in the open area.
Okay. Can you hold that photograph up for the jury, please? And I think we can see, I guess it's on the left-hand side, you see where it looks like some jumper cables?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then more towards the other side, that looks like there's some sort of can. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what that can was?
No, ma'am. I do not.
Could it have been pesticide?
Possibly.
Did anyone at any time suggest to you that the rupture of this can, this aerosol can, could have been the origin of the fire in your vehicle?
Objection, foundation.
No, ma'am.
Plaintiff's counsel asked you a number of questions about whether you observed any crush damage to your vehicle. Did you do an inspection of your Jeep after the crash?
No, ma'am.
After the Jeep was towed to the towing yard, did you ever see it again?
No, ma'am. I was waiting on the Chrysler inspector to call me so I can meet him there and look at the vehicle.
Do you know if anyone else in your family spoke to the Chrysler inspector?
No, ma'am.
Do you
No
know
one
if anyone?
spoke.
I'm sorry.
No one spoke to him.
Okay. Have you asked your husband if he spoke to the Chrysler investigator?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I know that he did not.
Okay. Do you know if anyone else in your family spoke to the Chrysler investigator?
No, ma'am. No one else did.
Do you know if anyone in your family attended the inspection with the investigator?
No, ma'am. They did not.
Did you ever, I'm sorry. And you don't know where the fire in your Jeep originated, do you? Where specifically?
No, ma'am. Just from the rear, I know it spread forward.
Right. When you exited the vehicle, where all was the fire at that time?
The vehicle was pretty much engulfed, and like I say, even the front, I knew it had already reached the front. All my hair was singed, and my daughter's was too.
Okay. Did you retain counsel at the time of the crash?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. Did you seek payment from the driver of the Dodge Dart to compensate you for the crash?
I received payment for being off work, and then other than that, and medical bills, no, ma'am.
Okay. Did the insurance company for the gentleman who was driving the Dart, did they pay for the cost of the loss of your vehicle?
Objection to any questioning about insurance payments.
No, ma'am. I believe Allstate, our insurance company, paid it.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It was between them and Geico, and I know Geico paid for all my medical bills.
Did you never brought a lawsuit against Chrysler, correct?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever provide a written statement to anyone about this crash at the time?
What do you mean by a written statement?
Like, did you ever write out anything and sign it
No, ma'am.
describing the crash?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ever give a deposition like this
No,
at the
ma'am.
time of the crash?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever given a deposition in any other case?
No, ma'am.
Wheel number
Yes, ma'am.
4. I want to show you a photograph that we've marked as Exhibit 4. Is that a photograph of the Dodge Dart that crashed into the rear of your Liberty?
I'm assuming it is. I never talked to the driver, and I just seen the car, like I say, from a distance. The car was back further.
Okay. Can you hold that up for the camera, please? Thank you, ma'am. Click off the record for just a second.
Time off the record, 7:03 p.m. Go back on the record, the time is 7:06 p.m.
Ms. Vargo, in response to some questions from plaintiff's counsel, I think you said you had received a recall notice prior to the one that we marked here that you got before the accident. Is
Yes,
that right?
ma'am.
Okay. And I think you said you. Tell me again. There was some discussion of either you called the dealership or you didn't.
I notified
or-
Sunbelt Chrysler here in Live Oak,
Mm-hmm.
and they said they would set me up with an appointment. And I wasn't concerned about it because I already had the trailer hitch on my vehicle.
Okay. So you called them, you set an appointment, and then you decided not to go because you thought
No,
you already
ma'am, they
had
just
one?
didn't have an appointment at that time.
Okay.
And they said it was a recall too, and that they could possibly have to order the parts.
Okay.
And on the flyer, I think it said it would take maybe up to 4 hours. So then I had to arrange a schedule. So whenever they were going to get the parts in or whatever, and they could do the recall, then I was going to take the vehicle in,
Okay.
so I could schedule around my work schedule.
Okay. Do you recall how many days, weeks, or months before your accident you got that notice?
It was just a few weeks before.
Sometime that summer. I think the accident was in October. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't, it was later. I mean, it was pretty close to the time. And like I say, even then, I still wasn't really concerned with it, being as I already had the trailer hitch, and okay, well, I'll take it in and they can look at the bolts.
Got it. Okay. That's all the questions I have right now.
Ma'am, my name's Dave Davidson. I represent Tri-State Concrete and Tracy Wayne Moore in this matter. First off, I want to thank you for taking time to be here today to tell us about your accident. I know it's going on almost 4 hours, and I appreciate that. And I know we all do. Ma'am, I only have maybe 1 or 2 questions for you. As I understand, you and your daughter walked away from this accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you only had minor injuries, such as you have bronchitis from the possibly
Irritation.
irritation from either the fire or from the airbag, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your hair was singed, correct? Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
No one had any kind of traumatic brain injury or anything of that nature, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I've got a few follow-up questions. So FCA showed you several pictures. We pick one. You can pick any one that they showed you.
Anything with the blue.
Yes.
Which number do you have?
2.
We look at the top. Do you see little red writing at the top of that picture?
Yes.
What does that say?
White, Susan versus FCA US LLC.
That's not this case, is it?
Objection to form, cause for speculation.
That is not this case.
Do you know the name of this case?
Not right offhand. Gilreath?
So you know it's not White. White versus FCA.
No, it's not.
Would it surprise you to learn that White versus FCA is another Jeep that was rear-ended and caught fire?
Objection to form, cause for speculation. Lights Foundation. Leading.
Would it surprise me? I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would it surprise you to learn that White versus FCA, the pictures that this was produced in, was another Jeep that was rear-ended, caught fire?
Same objections.
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
So you said that you tried to make an appointment after you got the first recall notice, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Then you said that they didn't have the parts?
Objection. Foundation misstates testimony.
They told me that they could possibly have to order the parts and that it was around a 4-hour fix, is what it said on the flyer, the recall flyer. And they told me they would get back with me because I told them, yeah, when you have the parts. And like I say, I was not concerned about it because I already had the trailer hitch and that was supposed to be the fix.
Let me ask the question in a different way. Did you ask to make an appointment when you called?
Yes.
And did you make an appointment?
No, I did not schedule the appointment at that time
And why did you not schedule an appointment at that time?
because they said they possibly have to order the parts and also it was to do with my work.
So you tried to make an appointment.
Yes.
Objection to form.
And how many weeks did they say that it would take to get the parts?
They didn't say that.
And how many weeks after you called did this wreck happen?
Objection, ask and answer.
Probably within a month.
That's all I have.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
This includes the video recorded deposition of Patricia Vargo, the time 7:13 p.m.